The following half-hour show is a paid political program and is not endorsed by this station, management, or staff.
The following program is sponsored by Excalibur Insurance Management Services.
Today we bring you a special Volpe Report, diverging from politics to talk about public safety and the clear and present danger that the proliferation of gang activity presents to Scranton and northeastern Pennsylvania. Yes, we have a gang problem right here in Scranton. Just in the past couple of months, we have had a gang member shooting into a police car and striking Scranton police detective Kyle Gilmartin, hitting him twice in the head and critically injuring him. Then, a few weeks ago, we have a gang member apprehended at Scranton High School attempting to enter with an AR-22. And most recently, a father was shot and killed trying to retrieve his son's cell phone after the son had an altercation with the gang member. To discuss the issues, we have brought you three representatives of the various institutions that are directly involved in this serious threat. To be clear, we do not have a youth violence problem, as some officials have suggested. We have a gang problem. The first guest, Pennsylvania Senator Marty Flynn, who has been a regular guest on the show, is here because funding is required for the detection, apprehension, and punishment. Money is required specifically from the General Assembly, so Senator Flynn will be discussing that. As you already know his credentials, since he has been a regular guest, we will skip to the other two. Next, we have a representative from law enforcement, Pennsylvania State Trooper Lieutenant Michael Joyce. Lieutenant Joyce enlisted in the state police in 2006 and was assigned to Troop R Blooming Grove after graduating from the State Police Academy. He swiftly was promoted through the ranks, becoming a corporal in 2013 and then attaining the rank of sergeant in 2016. Pennsylvania State Police Commissioner Robert Ivanchik promoted Trooper Joyce to the high rank of lieutenant as he became the station commander of Troop R Gibson. Lieutenant Joyce is currently the patrol section commander, Troop R Dunmore. Lieutenant Joyce is a native of Scranton, and besides his academy certification, holds a bachelor's degree in biochemistry from the University of Scranton. And finally, we have the first assistant district attorney of Lackawanna County, Brian Gallagher, a veteran state and federal prosecutor who is now second in command in the DA's office. Prior to his current position, Brian was an assistant United States attorney in the Justice Department and will continue serving part-time as a special assistant United States attorney. Educationally, Brian received his Juris Doctorate degree from the Western Michigan School of Law. In his time at the DA's office, Brian has served on the Gun, Gang, and Drug Unit, where he prosecuted felony cases involving drug trafficking and gang and gun-related violence. He was later put in charge of the Major Crimes Unit, where he oversaw prosecution of major crimes, including homicide, manslaughter, aggravated assault, and gun violence. As you can see, there's a great deal of expertise on this panel to discuss today's topic. We think it'll be educational for you.
This is the Volpe Report, a weekly news and political interview show examining the latest local, state, and national issues with Chuck Volpe. Insightful, informative, controversial. The area's premier political talk show, the Volpe Report.
Welcome to a very special Volpe Report. Every once in a while in this show, which as you know is a political talk show, we mainly talk about Democrats and Republicans and budgets and border crisis and political issues. Today we're going to deal with something a little closer to home in our media market, the prevalence and proliferation of gang violence. So I have been very fortunate to assemble a roundtable of experts, all bring a different thing to this area. And today's show, I hope, is illuminating, instructive, and kind of a warning of what we're dealing with. We have a gang problem in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I want to be clear about that. I've heard certain officials say, "Oh, we don't have a gang problem." We have one in Scranton, and bodies are starting to pile up, and there is a present danger now that citizens need to be aware of. That's why I'm dedicating the whole show to it. So as you've heard from their wonderful resumes, they're uniquely qualified and have leadership positions. And working around the table this way, we have Lieutenant Michael Joyce, highly decorated lieutenant in the Pennsylvania State Police. He's been a station commander, a patrol commander, and he is one of our highest ranking troopers in the state and brings special expertise. As you've heard from his resume, he could be teaching a professor at various colleges and universities. He has been, as I've heard from other sources, I'm glad he's on our side. I've already told him, and he's an expert in courtrooms, and his knowledge of things that go beyond just normal detecting in police work is extraordinary. So we have him. We have to my immediate right here, we have a district attorney. He's the first assistant district attorney, and that's Brian Gallagher. He is freshly minted district attorney because he has just come over from the Justice Department. He had been a assistant United States attorney. So we have his view of it from law enforcement or from prosecution side. And then finally, both of their jobs require funding. Dealing with gangs require money. And we have our rising through the ranks of leadership senator, our very own Senator Marty Flynn, who's been a regular guest in this show. And his introduction to this topic was to give the DA's office $100,000 recently, like immediately in the aftermath of the tragic shooting of Detective Bill Martin, who thankfully has survived. He's a miracle, a walking miracle, who was shot while in his vehicle, apparent gang activity. So that's our table. And the first subject, and I'm going to go around the table starting with the lieutenant, is going to be that, yes, we do have a gang problem in Scranton in northeastern Pennsylvania. Trooper.
Thank you, sir, and thanks for having me on the show here. Since January, with Detective Gil Martin's shooting, we've tried to assist Scranton PD every way that we possibly can, in the Lackawanna County District Attorney's Office as well. We've provided additional troopers to help the enforcement efforts in the city, just in addition to what Scranton already provides, as well as our vice units, intelligence units, anything that Scranton PD has requested. Our command staff has approved their use of in the city of Scranton. So we're happy to do that.
And what have you observed, Lieutenant, on the subject matter that, yes, we have a gang issue here? I would say the obvious answer as well, a detective, a police officer, Detective Gil Martin, got shot twice in the head while he was in his vehicle. That's pretty good evidence. Now we've had another killing at Weston Field and right outside the city limits and downtown limits of Scranton, involved with another gang situation just in the last week. So what has been your view of that we do have?
Correct. There's definitely a gang problem within Scranton, and whatever happens in Scranton also affects the rest of the valley.
Of course.
So any of the cities and the boroughs and towns in Lackawanna County and beyond are affected from this problem that we do have in Scranton.
Now we're going to turn to you, Brian. You're a prosecutor. You're going to be prosecuting these cases. We have suspects in custody, obviously. And what's your view on the issue of the gang problem that we have here?
Yeah, I mean, it's been painted with a broad brush that it's youth violence. It's not youth violence. These are small, targeted groups. They're cells that are enamored with gun violence. They're gangs. To paint it as youth violence, I think is inadequate. We have to call them what they are. In order to address a problem effectively, you have to first acknowledge the problem. So these are gangs and they're violent. We have in Lackawanna County, thankfully with the help of the state police and Senator Flynn, we've developed a gang task force, and we're expanding that rapidly with the funds that Senator Flynn's provided, where we work with the Pennsylvania State Police Vice Unit with their patrol units who are adding additional patrols throughout the city every day. But from my perspective as a prosecutor, we have a gang enhancement on the books in the state of Pennsylvania, and it's very rarely used. I know Berks County uses it a lot. We've been in communication with the folks at Berks County, and we're trying to mirror our task force off of them, where we have an intelligence part and an enforcement part.
You said gang enhancement. What's that?
Right. A gang enhancement is a sentencing enhancement that's on the books but through the Pennsylvania State Legislature. It's in the Crimes Code. And if we could prove that individuals are part of gang activity, that would increase the potential prison sentence and keep these offenders off the streets, so that some of the programs, the after-school programs, the after-school activities are more effective. Because let's face it, right now, we have students that are leaving school and at 4 o'clock going home. And what's done by our great educators and after-school teachers and sports coaches is undone when they get home at 4 o'clock, when they're on the streets unsupervised.
Now we're going to turn to you, your comment, Marty, on the same issue. Off camera, and I'm hearing this from the lieutenant and from the prosecutor, that there is as we've talked about off camera, this is there's a violence component that I'm not sure people understand. What does gang mean? Just no one that has been affected by the violence, they don't understand. They don't even really think. Some people I've even heard it's kind of cute with the colors.
Yeah.
So,
well, what you have is you basically have the Bloods and the Crips, the Red and the Blue, and then you have the Latin Kings, which are the yellow and black mostly with the crown. But off that, there's different gangs, different sets of the gang, and the issue that I'm seeing right now on the enforcement side of this is these kids that are committing these crimes are basically already on ankle bracelets. Our judicial system has been handcuffed because there's no place to put these kids. The snapback in Northeast Pennsylvania from the Kids for Cash thing was they closed all these places. Right. Well, currently we don't have a place to house these bad actors. There's bad people in our society, and there's bad kids in our society that need to be locked up, and that's not happening right now, and that's an issue. Especially with 100 confirmed gang members in our Scranton school district. Over 100 confirmed gang members in our Scranton school district. Yes, wow. It's a fact. Wow. Okay, these are issues. There's no accountability for these actions of these kids. Putting them on an ankle bracelet. When Detective Galmart was shot, how many kids were on ankle bracelets when you showed up at that scene?
A majority of these gang members and their parents know that no matter what we do, if we arrest them, they're going home, they're getting released. We've been driving kids to Ohio, to Texas, so that we could incarcerate them to protect the community. That needs to change.
Well, I would think if you're in a gang and you're committed to violence in that lifestyle, you can care less about an ankle bracelet.
Right.
Especially if you know you're going to be released. And so back to you, Senator. So is this something that, I'm going to also talk to on this show, because they're scheduled to be on the show in the next month or so, our United States Congressman, Matt Cartwright, our United States Senator, Bob Casey, our United States Congressman, Dan Muser, and because obviously there needs to be a federal component besides state. But, this is something that I know you have a good relationship with the governor, that, you're going to be in a position to hopefully get monies earmarked.
And there's also been a move currently with the county commissioners to turn one section of the county prison into a cell for I think about 13, was it? About 13 of the say 20 to 50 real bad actors that should be incarcerated. We need to get these people behind bars.
I know, without not mentioning any names, I know one judge in particular had told one of the commissioners that if they didn't do something about making, jail space available, he was going to start sending the bracelets to this person, to the commissioner's house to take care of. We'll home confine them to your house. And he hopes that got the commissioner's attention. But to your point, is there any thought, if, I understand sometimes we in a society throw out the baby with the bathwater. Yes, what happened with Kids for Cash was atrocious and a tragedy. But having said that, conceptually, the idea of bringing the private sector to help fund and build a prison to work with government, is that something that you think? Look, what you're saying, we need a bigger jail. I hate to be like,
I think you have to keep. There can be no way that an adult can contact a juvenile. It has to be totally separate. Pennsylvania law keeps that. So this section of the county prison, there's no way they can even tap on a toilet or talk to through a toilet, Morse code to get to somebody. So at this point, we would welcome anything. I would basically say, and be very supportive in that avenue.
Absolutely. And like what Marty said, it has to be a sight and sound entrance requirement. Juveniles cannot see adult prisoners.
Right.
Adults cannot see juvenile prisoners. You can't hear them. You have to comply with the Rape Elimination Act. It's a separate entrance, but the need is dire. 13 beds is great. We commend Marty or Senator Flynn and the commissioners for doing that, but we could fill up 50 beds.
Right.
And that's how big of that's how big of a problem the gangs are in Scranton. We're behind the 8 ball. And I know you indicated you're going to have Congressman Cartwright and Senator Casey. We need money for enforcement. A lot of the money that's floating around for grants is about programming. And all that programming is critical. Anti-gang, violence prevention, after-school programming, critical. We need enforcement. Without enforcement, none of that programming is effective. We need to hammer these guys. And people want to look at it and say they're juveniles. Well, they're committing adult offenses. When you're waving around a gun and shooting people and taking lives, you should be treated as an adult. And that's what we have to do. We have to hammer.
And when the FBI came in and educated us on what's going on here, these kids are sold a false bill of goods. You know what I mean? It's a false promise. It's a false family. They all come to regret that, but they bite it hook, line, and sinker. So at that point, they're gone.
And part of that, Senator Flynn, is they're not going home to parents who are supervising or educating the way we were all raised, right? And part of that is because of their socioeconomic status, and I'm sympathetic to that. But that's why they find solace in these bad actors. That's why these bad actors will take care of them. So really, it's a parenting crisis too. And I can't tell you how many times over the past year where for a juvenile to come in, and we can't interview a juvenile in the state of Pennsylvania unless their parent or guardian allows us to, or they're with their attorney. Parents are telling their kids, don't talk to police. Right. Parents are telling them, don't talk to the DA, don't talk to the police. That's a problem. That's a societal problem. Right. We're the good guys. We're the ones you tell the information to, and we'll protect you. And that mentality needs to change.
Agreed. Lieutenant, your comments on some of this that you're hearing from the Pennsylvania State Police. And again, I understand there are, for the audience's benefit, there's a lot you can't say because you're literally law enforcement. Anything you say, the gangs will be listening to the show. And so I understand you're limited, but what you can comment on.
I think I can comment on the need to change the behavior. So the after-school activities that Attorney Gallagher mentioned, that's definitely crucial, even for kids that aren't in the gang initiatives here. Kids from Scranton, like Troop R has the Troop R Camp Cadet program. We're trying to show what we do on a daily basis and show like the good side of law enforcement, because we do have Scranton PD, us, and numerous federal law enforcement agencies come in and interact with them. Scranton PD has their own camp during the summer. We also have the Office of Community Engagement, where they're dedicated to each troop to go out and they read to students in the Scranton School District. So we're trying to get out there to show the good side of law enforcement, and hopefully they could trust us with that information that we need. And
not trust the evil influence from the gang leader that's trying to recruit you to sell drugs or do whatever other crimes. Correct. We haven't talked about yet, at least, we've talked about the violence component. Is there a drug component in Scranton as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a drug component. They go hand in hand. But relative to our juvenile offenders, there's not much drug running, right? Our older gang members are the ones who are involved in drug trafficking. Our younger gang members are truly involved in acts of violence, which is a huge problem. It would almost make sense if they were doing it for some reason, for some purpose, to either get money or make a better living. That is not what we're seeing in Scranton. It is randomly and intermittently shooting up houses of opposing gang members, acts of extreme violence for which there's no explanation. So among our juvenile offenders, there's not much drug running or drug trafficking.
As the lieutenant said, and I know we've talked about it, that education is a big part of the plan. And you have been traveling, I think, to schools. Can you talk a little bit about that with someone? I think this person is a detective associated with the Attorney General of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so I've been going to borough meetings, school board meetings, and just telling them that The DA's office provides a number of services to our local school districts. We do canine searches. We do SRO training, school resource officer trainings. We provide prom presentation, gang presentations. Yesterday, we actually spoke at Dunmore High School and talked to, they had a service day, talked to their teachers about signs and identification so that they could, if they see something, they could say something, right? Because ultimately, the way I see this enforcement, we are going to hammer away at Scranton, and some of these people are going to disperse. And what we want to do is make sure that everybody else in Lackawanna County, all of our officials, understand how to identify, and if they see it, to report it. So that's kind of what we've been going around talking about.
When you say identify, what are kind of characteristics?
Sure, and Senator Flynn hit on it before. For instance, for the Crips, you have blue beads, blue bandanas, blue clothing. For the Bloods, traditionally, it's red jerseys, red bandanas, red bracelets, any of those things. Graffiti used to be big. Now what we're seeing amongst our juvenile offenders is, on top of their infatuation with firearms, most of this stuff is all on social media. So it's their presence on social media, the way they type words and messages. For instance, in one of our cases, we've had a juvenile who was a Crip member who would not use the letter C. So every word that was spelled that had a C in it was replaced with a K or an X, meaning no Crip. So that's an identifying factor. So if teachers see that in a notebook, see that on a test, that's an indication that this kid's gang activity. Let's report it. Let's try to get him the help he needs, and let's stop him from getting involved in this until it's too late.
Right. Lieutenant, back to you. What do you see, based on what he said? Anything else, or anything to comment on? What do we look for? What would you look for in what a gang member is, or like the evidence of a crime? If you're investigating some other type of crime, there would be certain circumstances that you would look for. He's identified one with the letters. Anything else from your end?
I think the call to action would be to the community to reach out for if they have like Ring doorbell cameras or surveillance cameras at their houses. Even if they don't want to get involved, if they share that information, if we're looking for a specific vehicle or something that happened around their neighborhood, that would be great information to share with us. I know Scranton PD has a lot of anonymous reporting, so they can utilize that, or they can call us at the barracks at Dunmore. Just having that open dialogue and sharing what information they have would help greatly.
Are there other areas in the state that are being affected? We know the big cities always, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, have it, but
you see some of it. You see some of the overflow in our Allentown area, a lot in the Allentown area, a lot in the Reading area, McKeesport out west, the overflow from Pittsburgh. We get it from the people that come from New York and Philadelphia, some of that. It's...
What's made Scranton attractive? And I'll turn to you on this from a...
I think it's proximity really to the big cities, right? It's proximity off Interstate 80 and 81 to Philadelphia and New York.
Which Allentown has. That's connected to everywhere.
Right. Reading and Allentown, you're close to Philadelphia and New York. And they can make, as it relates to drugs, for drug trafficking, it's appealing because they can make more money here. So heroin or fentanyl is sold for less money in New York and Philadelphia than it's sold for here. Right, they could double their profit if they move here, and we've really combated with the county drug task force and the state police vice unit and the Scranton street crimes unit specifically. Really do great work on drug busts, and now with the help of what Chief Carroll has done is expanded the street crimes unit, and they are really a productive unit. And that was a unit that Detective Gil Martin initially started out in. They're aggressive. They're experts in interdiction, and that's what we need more of. So it's really a collaborative effort between the Scranton PD and Scranton PD Street Crimes and the Detective Bureau, the Vice Unit of the Pennsylvania State Police, and Lackawanna County Detectives in not only drugs, but now we're expanding that to a gang unit.
So, Lieutenant, from your end, from the law enforcement end, you provide basically like, I would think, intelligence services. You coordinate that with Scranton as well as the actual enforcement and boots on the ground?
Correct. We do have intelligence troopers that are local and we also have him in Harrisburg, at the central location. But we also talk statewide. So the trends that we see out west in Harrisburg or Allentown, Reading, we get to share here in Scranton area as well. And then the boots on the ground, our patrol unit, the guys in the uniform I'm in today, those are the ones that are taking the appropriate actions on the streets of Scranton and interstates.
Do you think, based on your expertise, that after school specifically, that if they're not involved in basketball or football or baseball or soccer or something like that, do you think video games promote some of this stuff?
Certainly some could.
Yeah.
So, that's part of being a parent, to monitor what they're doing.
Right.
And that would help greatly.
Yeah.
So, but there's also people that play, certain video games that go and enlist in the military and become troopers. So I can't paint that with a broad brush, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, most importantly, funding is needed for enforcement. Boots on the ground for law enforcement to address the underlying problem of gang violence. There's also a component that can provide after-school programming, anti-gang violence education, and give these young kids who are acting like adults a positive role model, whether it's a male or female coach, or give them something to do that's not gang affiliated or violence affiliated. But in order for that to work, we have to address enforcement. It has to be enforced. Right now, we're a little bit behind the 8 ball, but ultimately, in the past month, 2 months since Detective Gilmartin's shooting, we kind of got the sails back under our wings, right? So everyone's rallied around that. And unfortunately, it takes something like that to happen this day and age for people to show the respect and admiration for law enforcement that they've earned, right? And now we're kind of coming together as a community again. And I think that ultimately we're going to have a solution to this problem real soon. So
there's some bad eggs that just aren't going to ever play nice.
So true, but historically in the United States and anywhere you go in this world, where there's poverty, there's crime, period. And that needs to be addressed. Our schools need to be properly funded so our kids can critically think and get an actual education. You know what I mean? Not defunding their schools and then thinking everything's going to happen is going to be great and la. It doesn't work that way. We are seeing the systematic defunding of our public school system right before our eyes. And these are the effects. This is what happens. Right. You know what I mean? You get these kids who aren't critically thinking, who aren't being educated, that are just hitting the streets and don't care. Right. Because they have nothing to care about. Right. And that's something we need to address. But at the same time, when they do break the law and get involved in these gangs, they're held accountable. Right.
And they need somewhere to go. We need jails too. So at any rate, our time, regrettably, I can't believe the half hour ran out so quickly. But I want to thank all of you because, me pontificating here doesn't mean a hill of beans. I want to bring experts in to talk about it from law enforcement, from prosecution, and from what very important, like both sides kind of come back to you in a way. You have a very large role at this table, being a senator, and, because of the issues you talked about, funding for law enforcement, funding for jails, and funding for school, so that it becomes an option.
We'll spend $40 grand a year to put them in jail, but we won't spend $40 grand a year to educate them.
Right. That's a big issue. Yeah, no doubt. Well, all right, guys, thank you very much. We hope you found this educational, this week's Volpe Report. So we'll be back next week. In fact, next week we have Democratic Speaker of the House of Representatives of Pennsylvania, Joanna McClinton, will join the show to give us an update of where our budget talks are, as June 30th is looming large. See, I spared you all the budget talk this time. Usually I bring in you for that stuff. We're to let the House take care of that. This time. Thank you all, gentlemen. Awesome. See you next week.